Councillor Collins, I think, is online. Okay, welcome to this Executive Cabinet meeting. First item is apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Craig Southern. Anybody else? No? Right. Fine. Item 1 is the minutes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Peter Wilson, who is online. I can see his happy smiling face.
I am here.
And we can hear you, Peter, that's good. And then I think we've got Councillor Collins online as well. So, fine. Next item then is the minutes of the meeting of 13th of July. Has anybody got any points to raise on those minutes? I'll move those then, if that's okay. Can somebody second those? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Okay, great. They are passed. Next item is declarations of interest. Has anybody got any declarations of interest to declare? No. Right. Any public questions, Nina?
None received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right. The first item of business is item 4, which is the revenue budget monitoring report for quarter 1. Councillor Wilson, take it away if you're okay to go.
Thanks, Alistair. See, as the report says there, it highlights in the executive summary the revised position in terms of the budget forecast. So you can see there that we have forecast overspend of 688,000. Now the report goes into some detail, but to try and give that summary as to where that's come from. Clearly, this is set against predictions, forecasts that were made in December or the end of December last year after the settlement, or early New Year perhaps. And the main two factors for this overspend is clearly the utility bills and staff wages. So if we look at utility bills first, we forecast a 50% increase. This is 50% increase from where we were, as I say, 8 months ago. Clearly bills have gone up more than that, and although they've just started to come down a little bit, they've not come down very much. And unfortunately, as it stands today, the government support for non-domestic users has been removed. And while we've seen the government do a U-turn in terms of domestic users, as yet that's not the case for ourselves. So clearly, our utility costs are going to be extra than we predicted. And that's extra above and beyond the 50% increase that we budgeted for. The other factor there that it mentions in the reports is the staff wages, which I think was paragraph 14. You can see there the negotiations are still ongoing, but again, we budgeted for 5%. I think at the time, other authorities budgeted for something similar. Most, I think, were a bit less. So obviously that will affect their calculations as well. But at 5%, that seems to be going to be not be the case. And in fact, clearly at the moment we're budgeting for that £1,925 increase. So those two factors play a significant part in the projected overspend. In addition to that, there are areas where our income has been lower than what we anticipated. So if we take, for example, in the economic development area, we've got the strawberry fields, strawberry meadows. Their units have been let perhaps 3 or 4 months behind where we expected. So again, on that, that's not a major issue in terms of the long term, because the good thing is we got those units away. And it mentions in the report there what the progress that's been made in relation to that. But obviously, the 3 or 4 month delay in what we anticipated has an impact on your projected income for this for the financial year we're in. There are other areas as well, Chair, that we mentioned, such as property services. There needs to be improvements there in performance, as we do in terms of income at Alistair. So there's some challenges for us which we can very much get a grip of and deal with. There are others, probably the first two that I mentioned, that are largely beyond our control, albeit that it has a major influence on our projected spend. So I don't intend to go through each one, though. That members have had a chance to read the report. They can raise any issues they have, but fundamentally, in terms of the overall position, that's where we are today. And I would stress that it is very much where we are today. Things could change. Obviously, if we get support with energy bills, that will change. Well, the cost might also increase in part, but we can certainly work to increase income streams, whether that's things like the leisure centre, other areas, or we can also work to try and reduce costs as well. So it's going to be challenging. But as it stands today, as it says in the report, that's the projected overspend. At the minute, that will be funded out of our balances. But hopefully, as I say, the position may change over the year, and hopefully for the better. But if it doesn't, then we are prepared. And when we look at the state of the world and other councils, we're still in a position where we can deal with that and deal with those increased costs and carry on with our business. So at that point, Chair, I'll conclude.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Questions, comments? I've got Councillor Lowe and then I've got Councillor Cullen. So Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation with what Councillor Wilson mentioned about paragraph 14 of the report, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, but that as well has got the potential for being an underestimate of in effect, the final pay settlement, and obviously that table on paragraph 14 just goes to highlight particular those directorates within the authority that are labour intensive, therefore has the knock-on effect with the increase in cost. The other one that Councillor Wilson has alluded to in terms of the ongoing pressure over utilities, and it seems that the mood music from central government would be that there will be no kind of help for non-domestic customers, and it's unlikely that there'll probably be much help for domestic customers. So it's those two pressures that gives members and the council as a whole the challenging times as we try to manage our budget and moving forward for when we come up with proposals for next year, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. I note the comments made, and I also note that I find it slightly perverse the government says there's no support for energy bills, but yet they seem to be wanting to do something. I think not enough personally to support leisure centres through rounds of money being done on short-term arrangements for, which presumably the two biggest inputs into the costs of leisure centres are utility bills and wages. So anyway, it goes around and it comes around. Who knows what the plan is? Councillor Cullens.
Yeah, thanks very much, Alistair. That was a perfect lead-in you've just got. It's just a question with regards to a paper that we're going to be asked to discuss next week with the leisure services. And one on agenda page 19, what if there's going to be a further impact on the General Reserve Fund if that is passed next week?
Peter, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, sorry. So obviously we've got that going to next week's council, haven't we? The item on the leisure services. So I'm just trying to think, Councillor Collins, and I apologise because I've not got the report in front of me as to what the, as it were, what the proposal is in terms of the funding. You know what we're doing in terms of making up the funding gap. Someone might have to help me. Is Louise in the room or Chris?
No, they're not. So that's a separate issue. From my understanding,
happy to take offline, Alistair.
Yeah, I can come back to that. Let me check. I don't want to say something now and then you say
no.
That's great, Peter. Yeah, no problem.
But I think this is a projected spend for the year based on what the projected spend for the year is.
My suspicion is that is it, but I don't want to say that is it. It's coming from a different area. You know what I mean? It's projected somewhere else if it's then not. Yeah.
And the money for the report next week is the redistribution of that. But I don't think it's extra over to Alan, but we'll confirm that back to you. And the officers in the room are nodding in agreement with that, but none of them are exactly responsible for that report. So it would be unfair to put that on them as well. So we'll come back to that.
Fantastic. Cheers. Thanks, Alistair, Peter.
Okay. Yes. Any other questions or comments on anything on that report? No? In that case, then, we are asked to endorse the recommendations that Peter's proposed at paragraphs 2 and 3, which are to note the forecast return and outturn, and to note the variance made, etc. That's been proposed by Peter. Somebody happy to second that?
Can you propose it because Peter's not in the room?
Oh, I'll propose it, sorry, because Peter's not in the room, so I have to propose it, Peter. Seconded by Councillor Morwood. All those in favour, please show. Great stuff, thank you. Excellent. Right. Next item is item 5, which is the capital and balance sheet monitoring report. Also Q1 and also Peter Wilson. Carry on, Peter.
Briefly, you can see there on the paragraphs 9 and 10 and 11, it gives us the overview of the capital programme. So we've seen a £4 million reduction. And what was reported from approved by Cabinet rather, and it outlines those changes on Appendix A. But obviously, since the last monitoring report, just to sort of contradict that in terms of its overall picture, since the last monitoring report, there's a total increase of £5.5 million in the capital programme. Which, if we go over the page, we can see Table 1, the approved budget changes. So you can see that's largely issue of relocating the Bengal Street depot, which I think we've got a paper on later in terms of the procurement, and of the trolley adaptation grants, which again we've had to increase, which is the right thing to do. So, but they're the biggest contributors in the next years to that change in capital programme. The general reduction capital programme comes with the next item, which is the slippage and reprofiling of budget. So we can see there's a total of £7.8 million of projects which have shifted or been reprofiled. Some familiar ones there, such as the ones we've got earmarked for the town centre public realm and the town hall, as well as Trolley Health Centre, which it says in the report negotiations are still ongoing, and as well as, of course, the leisure centres, which we've already briefly mentioned. We'll discuss in more detail next week, and hopefully we are keen to get money invested there for the obvious reason that we need to make sure our leisure centre's got a long-term future. So in terms of the overall capital programme, that's the overview. It mentions the borrowing requirements. We can see there that both short-term and long-term borrowing have increased. But again, we know that at the moment, obviously, the reason short-term borrowing has gone up is because, of course, it's interest rates being as they are. We don't want to commit to longer-term borrowing at this stage at higher rates, so we're borrowing on a shorter-term period, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, and then we'll wait and see. That may change, so it may be that we move more into the long-term, depending, and in the future, depending on what our interest rates are. And then finally, in terms of the council tax and business rates, again, at this stage, you'd expect it to be okay, and indeed it is, as it says there quite clearly. We're very much on target and doing as well, if not better than last year. So for the capital programme, Chair, not much change at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Any questions on that report? Comments? Queries? No? In that case, then, we are asked to, I better move the recommendations in paragraphs 2, 3 and 4, which are noted on your agenda. Somebody happy to second those, please? Thank you. Bev, Murray. All those in favour, please show. Good. Right, that's passed. Thank you very much. Right, we trot on to item 6, Peter, which is also your report, and it's a Chorley Quarter 1 Performance Monitoring Report, pages 43 to 64 in your papers. Are you ready to carry on, Peter, or do you need a break?
Yep, happy. Yep. Okay, so again, quarter 1, so you'd expect the performance to be okay at this stage. If we were massively off track, we'd have real problems. But at this stage, of course, most of the key projects are rated as green, and most of the indicators are. The only key project that's amber at the moment is the local plan, which this has obviously been ongoing, so members do know about it, but clearly the key issues there, one is staffing, and it mentions the specialist staff that we need. We have recruited, I think, one new person. I think we are currently actively looking at recruiting the others, but still that's causing a challenge in the department. The second element to the local plan, of course, is the fact that we've got 3 partners, or 2 partners plus ourselves, and like everything in life, that's not always easy in terms of getting everyone on the same page over what is a very, very complex matter. So I think, as you've said in the past, Alistair, that the local plan will be time-consuming and difficult and probably never very, very satisfactory, but we'll get there in the end. So we will keep going with the local plan and hopefully over the year make progress. In terms of the indicators, the key couple of indicators relate to economic activity. So we've got the number of NEETs, that's got people not in education, employment and training, that's slightly off target. We've got the employment rate, again, that's off target. And I think on the employment rate, what's mentioned in the report there is the fact that it seems to be a problem not just in Chorley but in Lancashire. And there is some specialist work going on, which is to discover why the number of people actively employed in our area isn't as high as perhaps it is in other parts of the country. So we do need to do some work on that, but we need to obviously work with our partners on that. Likewise, as it says in the report, we are doing our own work. So we are employing people. We've got a full-time employment and skills officer who's been now recruited. We're bringing forward the employment and skills programme in Chorley, which is looking at how you get people into work, particularly those harder to reach people, and getting the right skills and career paths. So I think there's work we can do with schools, there's work we can do with colleges, there's work we can do with partners such as DWP and LCC. But obviously, we also need to look at perhaps some of the underlying reasons as well in terms of the overall employment rates. On other indicators of target, I think the number of leisure centre visits, we'll mention that because we mentioned leisure centres twice now, so we'll make it 3 in a row. Clearly, we do need to get those up. And, you know, while the challenges are always going to be there in terms of utility bills, we need to get our income up. Now, that has been affected by the closure of Bryn School to an extent, but we need to do more in terms of improving the facility at Chorley and making sure we've got the full range of services on offer there, which it mentions in the report. So it mentions looking at the yoga, you know, looking at including other classes, looking at getting the All Seasons cafe fully up and opening and running. So there are ways we can increase income. We have to increase membership. And we have to look at what people want from a leisure centre in order to attract them in there. So that's all part of that package. So as I say, Chair, I think generally the report is good and it's positive for the reasons we said. But those couple of areas we are actively looking to address.
Thank you for that report. Any comments, questions on any of those items? Councillor Cullens first.
Yeah, thanks, Alistair. So I'm stuck on a theme tonight. It's agenda page 56, which around the leisure centres. I'm just wondering whether it's a very difficult one. I understand the number of problems that are occurring around Lancashire with regards to leisure centres. I'm just wondering whether we need a full options paper at some time or something to go through over scrutiny. There are a number of options open to us, but I think we need to look very, very carefully at how we move forward, what we're going to do, because I think it's becoming clear there is not the push to get back into leisure centres. And if we can't increase those numbers, I think we need to view the options at some point.
Okay, I think Councillor Murray would like to come in, Councillor Wilson. So if you want to say something, then Councillor Murray can. Or
No, I'll let Councillor Murray do it if she's.
Hiya. You asked Councillor Cullens about a 5-year plan a couple of meetings ago, which we were in the process of putting together. But given the significant challenges, we are going back to review that with a view to have a short. But I would actually welcome scrutiny having a look at leisure centres because it is really challenging. I think we all want the leisure centres to be accessible, affordable, and people use them. So I think the more people that can look at it and review it, I think would be extremely useful to the council.
Thanks, Bev. Thank you.
Councillor Morwood, unless you wanted to add anything to that, Peter.
No, I was just going to say exactly what Bev said there at the end, which is the more we have people inputting, but also that key thing is the plan. As you say, it's what do we do and how do we grow, how do we develop, and as you say, ultimately all the options. But you're absolutely right, we've got to be really, really proactive with the leisure centre, otherwise it will be very, very difficult all the way going forward.
I think the other thing we're seeing a little bit is disposable spend, people's disposable income be squeezed, and that's having an impact on leisure being one of the things they stop doing, which is not ideal for long-term health benefits. Councillor Murray, do you want to come back in there?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, yeah, you know, we are having a difficult time with the leisure centres, but we have actually achieved quite a lot with them. You know, when Active Nation walked away, they took the software, they took the membership details. You know, we were left really high and dry with it. And, you know, we have now got an app. We've got people that can book online. Yeah, we still have problems, but we are addressing them. I think sort of over 70% of activities that were happening before COVID are now taking place. We have Trolley Buddies going in, you know, and it's doing, I can't remember what it's called, where you swim, but you don't swim, you like water aerobics. I think it's called.
Sinking.
Water aerobics. So, yeah, there is challenges, and yeah, we've got to, get on with it and make it more commercial. But we shouldn't really forget that, as a council, we have come quite a long way with them.
That was a political broadcast on behalf of the Leisure Department. Noted. Well, Alan, did you want to come back in on that point, or?
Yeah, because and wholeheartedly agree, Bev. We want to be very supportive on this. In that, I think from the health and well-being of the people of Chorley, it's important that we have some very active leisure centres or leisure activity. There's various things that say you can weigh up, and one of the things that used to exist a number of years ago, there was a bar in Clayton Green, which was very well used, but it would compete with the pub across the road. The pub across the road is now closed. I think there's a fantastic array of opportunities, and that's why I say I'd welcome overview and scrutiny looking at it, other opportunities that we can raise income to support the leisure centres.
Noted, and a juice bar, I think, is the politically acceptable version of that, but let's move on. I'm not the answer, I'm sure. Councillor Morwood, take us to another place.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Point 39, paragraph 39, and the percentage of young people not in education, employment, and so on. It's just a point. I worry about this. I'm very concerned. That's going to go up. I am absolutely sure that those are going to go up and up. There's an increasing number of young people in schools who are not attending. It started going down during COVID. They didn't come back, and that doesn't seem to have improved much at all. So they're not taking their exams. They're not therefore getting into further education or into training. The universities are not taking as many students locally. They're going for the money with forest students and so forth. So I really feel there's somewhere down the line we have to look very carefully at that and see what we can do to sort of take up the slack, because I don't think the schools are going to be able to do anything. I really don't. And they certainly, I would say, abdicate their vocational training and skills. Their emphasis on a lot of is on exams, O levels, show my age there, GCSEs, A levels, etc. And so the more we can do, and if we can do something about skills and training, it'd be very nice to set up something somewhere. I think we really need to look at that, because I don't see that improving anytime soon. Thank you.
Noted, and I think a lot of those sentiments are echoed on many levels. So let's just keep working at it. All we can do is do our bit, and if others don't do their bit, then. But I think that everybody's got a part to play, whether that's county council, us, universities, colleges, schools. Everybody needs to do their bit on that, and families as well. I think there's a culture point there. Okay. Anything else on the performance monitoring report at all? In which case, we are asked to note the report. Duly noted. Okay, good. Right, item 7 is the Queen's Road car park enhancement scheme procurement strategy. Councillor Wilson again.
Thanks, Alistair. Yes, so we're all aware of this long ongoing issue, which is the Queen's Road car park. So this actually finally, hopefully, sets the process in motion to get the work done. So clearly, straightforward in terms of what the ask is. It's to approve the procurement strategy and the evaluation criteria, and then obviously the award to be delegated to myself as the executive member when that process is being completed. So it says there on page 66, we're looking at 60% cost in terms of the evaluation criteria. That is 60% cost, 25% quality, and 15% social value split. And hopefully we'll be able to get this done as soon as possible, because it is long overdue. The car park is in a terrible, shocking state. But as we've already discussed, it's not just about providing the car park, it's about protecting the local environment. And in this case, I think enhancing it in terms of improving the area and improving the green spaces that will be in and around the car park. So hopefully we can get this approved and crack on with the work.
Okay. Any questions, comments on that report? Very straightforward. Councillor Morwood.
Just a quick one. I mean, yes, it has taken a while, and maybe I'm partly responsible with one or two others. Early on, there was a lot of concern about the trees and so forth, but it certainly is long overdue, and I welcome it's really, time we did something with it.
Okay, we'll accept that as an apology for delaying the process, Councillor Morwood, but not just you, there was many others involved as well. Okay, on that basis then, we're asked to propose the recommendations in paragraphs 2 and 3, which will have to come through myself again. So that's to approve the procurement strategy and evaluation criteria and to delegate it to Peter for the final decision. All those in favour, please show. Excellent, that's carried. So that's moved on. Thank you very much. Right, item 8 is the climate change business accreditation, which again is Councillor Wilson. But before he starts, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that there are a couple of confidential... Sorry. Councillor Lowe, I've got that wrong, haven't I? I was reading the wrong line, Adrian, sorry. It's Adrian Lowe, yeah, sorry Peter, I was giving you another one to do there. I was in the role. Yeah, there's some confidential appendices in sections 1, 2 and 5, which include in part 2 papers. And if we want to discuss that, we'll have to go into part 2 in detail. So we'll ask members just to keep to the generalities. If they want to go into the detail, they can, but we'll have to do that under a part 2, which is the next item. And we'll just move it into the part 2 papers. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. Councillor Lowe, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And as you've mentioned, appendices 1, 2 and 5 will be discussed, if need be, item 10 of the report. But the purpose of this report is to provide an overview of the proposed business accreditation scheme, to provide information about the financial spends for this scheme, and to provide feedback from the Climate Change Working Group and to seek approval of the accreditation scheme for publication. It originally came from the ONS committee and was incorporated into the climate change strategy, and also came from requests from local businesses. Paragraph 14 of the report is to allow businesses of all sizes and sector types to apply, and with over 3,000 businesses in Chorley, we're expecting quite a high uptake of it. To ensure that it remains competitive, only 10 will be selected per year, and then members will be pleased to know at paragraph 18 of the report that officers and elected members' input will be limited, and there'll be a special panel of judges through the process. If I can highlight paragraph 24 of the report, it currently didn't have any finalised name for the scheme, but a various number of options were put forward, and Climate Change Working Group voted in favour of Chorley Business Pathway to Net Zero accreditation. So taking on board from paragraph 26 onwards, the scheme will be open to application for a period of 10 weeks. There'll be a long listing scoring process, and then there'll be short listing for the top 10, and so therefore with that, and the timetable is at paragraph 31 of the report. With that in mind, Chair, then I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Any questions or comments or proposals to shorten the name? It does what it says on the tin, doesn't it, Adrian?
I'm going with the democratic wishes of the Climate Change Working Group.
Okay, no comments, no questions. Let's crack on with it then. So the recommendation, as Adrian has outlined, is in paragraph 5, which is to approve the scheme for public release, such as spend and supported documentation. Proposed by Adrian, seconded by Terry Howarth. All those in favour, please show. Good stuff, that's passed. That's moved on. Right, the next item is to exclude the public and press, which I will propose. Will somebody second that, please? Thank you, Adrian.